This is AI for developers, and we've got Chris Brock from Primary Hosting. Let's see how bad I can destroy your name.
No worries.
Mary Grigleski from Liberty, and Sam Jones from Pieces. And then our moderator today is Sabo, also from Pieces.
And I think I have a mic. Okay. Check. Can you guys hear me?
You will need the mic.
Oh, I will need a mic. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here, I'll just
sure.
kick it off. It seems like we got some more people trickling in, but was it Thursday? All right. Happy Thursday, everyone. I figured out I was the moderator about 3 minutes ago, so we're going to be, kind of flying on this, but I do this quite often. We'll start out with some intros. I'll go last, but thank you, panelists, for coming up here. It's developers and AI productivity, I guess, for developers. So we're just in the space. So, I'm pretty excited about this. But Mary, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Okay, so I'll introduce myself. My name is Mary Grigleski. I'm the AI practice lead at Liberty, which is a company and IT consulting firm out here in Cincinnati, out in the Blue Ash neighborhood. And we're focused more on engineering. We're really core developers. Kind of right now we're transforming from more like, we're doing all the engineering work, but to more solutioning. We're giving you ideas on how to do things, that type. So I just recently joined them in a great place. If you're interested, I think I just saw our Chief Revenue Officer, Lawrence, here too. Yeah, so if you have questions for the company. And a couple of us are coming in. We also have a booth here as well. So anyway, that's me. And then I was previously a developer advocate. Not sure if you're familiar with what advocate does. We're out there, outreach, talking with people, mostly like developers, but also other folks too, technical. Our goal is to make people successful. So I see myself also, I'm in this role to make people successful. That's what I do. And then prior to being developer advocate at DataStax first, and then I was also at IBM for 4 years prior to that. Then even before that, I was like for over 20-some years, 30 years as a software engineer. So that's my background.
Amazing.
Okay.
Yes. I'm Sam. I'm the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at Pieces. I'm going to let Sabo talk a lot more about Pieces. But yes, I came to ML and AI from sort of mathematical and philosophical background. So you could say that, I'm interested in all aspects of artificial intelligence. I spend most of my time these days building models, building products, and really excited especially in how we can use these tools to improve the lives of developers, make things easier for them, and help them iterate faster.
My name is Chris Brock. I am the founder of Primary Hosting. We are a Native American-owned cloud brokerage platform that enables companies to come to us and we can find the right solution for them and be that brokerage platform that allows them to choose a good, better, best solution based sort of on needs and price point, and we're able to deliver that. A really cool thing that's happened with us in the AI movement, we started something called ChatGPT for Business and Life on Facebook in December of 2022. It's grown to 270,000 members. It's one of the largest AI communities on the internet. It's right here in Cincinnati, so that's pretty cool. And if you haven't heard, we were able to go to MIT, so we just brought some really cool tools that are going to go in this virtual gift bag. One's called Orbit. It's going to help out with startup tactics and something called disciplined entrepreneurship. We also, last year, because of this group, I got to go to San Francisco. I met Ben Mann, the co-founder of Anthropic, and I DM'd him like, hey, Ben, we're going to have this event. Can you help us? And he just provided me with $25,000 in credits for their API to get to 100 companies. Really through the education system, we're going to do 50 and hopefully some startups here, 30 to 40, that can really get some value using Anthropic.
Well, fantastic. And last but not least, my name is Sabo Nath. I'm a CEO and technical co-founder at Pieces for Developers. I work with Sam. Sam is very humble, by the way. This guy's an absolute genius. And we're doing some pretty interesting stuff. But the name of the game for us is to help developers remember anything and interact with everything across the work in progress journey. So we're talking what you're doing in the browser, researching, problem solving, things like that. The code you're writing in the IDE, IntelliJ, VS Code, Visual Studio, if you're C# and C++, God bless you. And of course, your collaboration environment like GChat, Slack, and Teams. And so, we'll get a little bit more into it, but I want to start out with the first topic of, what are we feeling in the developer space? How have things changed in the past, call it year, 2 years? That change feels very, very accelerated. It feels like it's, I would say, pointed towards us developers first and foremost, because there's a whole bunch of tools now, kind of like Pieces, that want to help us move faster, but also too, we have a whole bunch of new things to build, right? All of our kind of team leads and startups and everyone's like, hey, we're going to use AI, right? What does that mean? Not exactly sure, but it's going to be in the pitch deck. And so there's a whole lot more to build, and the way we build is changing very quickly. So I guess, I'd love to openly talk about, at least something that I'm really narrowed in on, and that was like, before this advent of AI, I could write a handful of languages, right? Maybe just like 3 or 4. And I worked, therefore, on a handful of projects, and lastly, I worked with a set of cross-functional teams. And given this advent of large language models and generative AI, they're powering copilots or automated testing or coverage or whatever else, code search, etc. I can now work on virtually any number of languages, right? Which means I can work on any number of projects, and I can work inside of a whole larger subset of cross-functional teams. And so, at least for me, I would say that's introduced a whole lot more documentation, a whole lot more context switching, a whole lot more projects going on here and there and there. And so, at least that's kind of felt like an acceleration in chaos. But I'll get the panelists' take on that. We're just kind of setting the scene, how things changed given our world and the tools we have now.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. There are more tooling out there, and I think, as developers, like we have, I look at I came more from software again, design, and then getting into implementation of these things. But we know that software is being done in layers, right? Different layers, and there are many, complexity that goes in there, and you use APIs to communicate between all the layers. So to me, I think right now it's amazing the amount of APIs libraries that are coming out every day. Like, say, for example, working with LLMs, LangChain, Llama Index, all these are like, they're all famous. They pop up so fast. They just came out like a year or 2 ago, and now become the thing of highest ranking. Anyway, so the point I'm trying to bring out is that it is so much all these details, and the thing is though, it's helping you to solve problems a bit, all these APIs may be like higher abstraction level. So some of these lower abstraction things you still need to do. Maybe sometimes you need to customize, and to me, I think AI would be great to do. For example, I need to be doing something, I need to sort. Those are very basic kind of thing. AI can actually perfectly do it really good for you. And so you don't need to worry about it. And those things can be time consuming too, right? So to me, I think it can come in on that layer of all the foundational layer that can be helping. I think that's where I see it. Like GitHub Copilot, for example, and I think you guys doing all Pieces is similar to GitHub Copilot. Yeah, all those things. And even like, for example, Amazon, I'm aware of them, Amazon Q. Actually, recently I heard from someone. They are actually, you're able to do migration, like from upgrading, you can actually use AI assistant to do it, and that will really save a lot of time, right? And migration, all these things in production environments also always very difficult, but so I see it as a kind of plus.
And actually, I'll kind of, before we get over to Sam and Chris, I'll go ahead and ask 2 questions for the audience. So, how many people in here are using like an AI tool, either GitHub Copilot or some type of AI platform or things like that? Okay, so a good amount of hands. And how many in here think their jobs have gotten easier since you started using that AI tool, or the amount of work has gone down? Okay. Has the job gotten easier, or do you think it's just evolved, I guess?
Easier to get done.
Okay.
Faster.
Okay. And has anyone felt any type of like pressure from larger projects, growing code bases, like faster and faster, maybe more issues, more points of failures, things like that, even though you have these tools? I guess that's another question. Got some head nods? Maybe. So, it is interesting, right? And I guess what we're trying to get at is, although we have these tools, maybe we're not necessarily prepared for this faster, work that's being produced, or the larger volumes of code that are coming out. And so, Sam, maybe you could talk about some of the things that we're seeing and the things that we're trying to solve for, where it's not necessarily you're in the depths of the IDE, but maybe now your role is shifting to connect more dots, again, kind of at the higher abstracted layer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like, first up, I think as an industry, AI solved lots of deep problems. So for example, like, we're not gonna have a huge disaster when we run out of COBOL engineers anymore, for example. Yeah, it's easy to train people up. Now, building on what you're saying, Sabe, I think one of the things, and I think we all know this, something that generative AI is excellent at is doing things that are very commonly done, you know? So like, things that have been done before. Anywhere where you've got a process or a clearly mapped out way of doing something, AI sort of excels at these things, yeah? When it comes to building new things or building things that haven't done before, it's often not super helpful. And so coming back to what you were saying, I think one of the ways, so you know, generative AI is making us code a lot faster, which means the volume of code is rapidly increasing. And I think one of the things we're not prepared for is this like split. So how do you find all of the things that have been done before and that AI can easily do, and how do you differentiate them from the tasks that it's very bad at? So I think there are lots of things we're doing pieces to help with this, but I think sort of at a high level, what we really need to do is behavioral change as developers, right? And so one of the things that helps generative AI focus in on these easily repeatable tasks is things as simple as documentation, right? So where did you put your documents previously? You'd have them on Notion, if you're sort of cool, I guess, some other platform, but removed from the code base, right? Not deep in the code base. AI, it loves to have those instructions right next to the thing it's acting on, right? And so something that's changed a lot in the way I develop, my teams develop, is that documentation is coming out of these centralized repositories and getting included deep in the code. When you're writing comments, when you're documenting your code, you're always thinking, how could I make refactoring this? How could I make interacting with this easy with AI through the code, through the comments and documentation and writing? And so I think that's one of the sort of key changes. But the difficulty here is you put that stuff in the code, a lot more useful for the AI, but a lot harder for your team to find. And so I think these kind of like retrieval things, packaging together, clustering this information, feeding it back to you as a human to easily interact with, but also having a format that AI can interact with. I think these are essential changes, and I think we're seeing that at the moment in the industry.
Yeah, and Chris, I wanted to pass it over to you. You know, you've got a really wonderful community that you've built, and you know, you're out there in the world and you're kind of seeing what's going on. You're gauging the temperatures. Could you speak a little bit towards the tools that are getting adopted and welcomed with open arms, and then the tools that are kind of like triggering everyone with a tinfoil hat. And they're like, whoa, that's way too spooky. I don't know about that quite yet. What are you seeing in the community?
Sure. So I started out just by happenstance, become like Linux administrator, and started off like LAMP stacks and things like that. First thing that I realized is that with AI, that was the assistant that I wish I could find immediately. Going through and researching the internet to try to find like why you're having a bug, it was just so problematic, and now it sort of happens out of the box now that it's something that would take search, you can now ask direct. And I hit so many times, that was the update from 3 years ago, but that doesn't work anymore. That's really solved in a way that I just saw immediate, right when ChatGPT launched. So that out of the box is okay. We've now moved in, I think, to low code, no code movements. So that means everyone that's not a developer can probably be a decent developer. I mean, for sure, I would feel that if you have the ability to use language to perform a task, prompt it correctly, and you're using a good system, you might be able to at least find the best architecture you should build this on, and maybe move that down the line. I think we're going to start coding by dialogue really soon. In the group, there's a guy named Thomas Hansen. He invented I don't even want to call it like a language. It's called HyperLambda. It's one blogged by Microsoft. It's one of the most read. His system is so phenomenal that you can tie it into a couple systems like your databases, and then you can just prompt it, and it understands the database, it understands what's there, and it can start building functionality and connectivity. You can say build a CRM, and I've never seen anything like it. It wrote like 40,000 lines of code within his environment in a few minutes. And I've never seen anything like it, and like the world hasn't seen anything like it yet. This stuff's just now narrowly being adopted. But I think we're going to move into a world where you're going to be able to use an AI assistant first. Now finding it might be a whole different thing, but building it now is going to be rapid. So I think that's a big thing. I think what we've heard this year, last year, I think it was shock and awe with AI. Everyone was just like, wow, it's here. It was like, if you're a developer, it's probably like the coolest thing you've waited for your whole life. That first step to sort of like that future Star Trek environment is having Jarvis, you know. I think what we're seeing now is like RAG. If you haven't used that, retrieval augmented generation. We're seeing that. CustomGPT.ai is here. Their founder, Walden Rosario, was an early member of my group, and he's built a RAG model that's ranked really high, but it allows people to train a model really quick and use RAG on top and build a persona, and low code, no code all the way. And you're starting to see raft models, which is sort of like retrieval augmented generation with some fine tuning, and that's really cool. So I think now you're starting to see developers move into this low code, no code environment. So I think that's what we're going to see in a very real way. And also AI workflows. I think that's going to be what we'll see too, is that how do you build a workflow but be able to change the model out from Anthropic to ChatGPT to an open source model like Llama and not break the workflow. So I think we're going to start seeing that. We already are, but we'll see that, I think, coming into this year, that you're going to start executing on AI workflows.
Yeah, I don't think you meant to tee us up for that, but that's exactly what we do. We're large language model runtime agnostic. So if you're using it on device, you can use Phi 3, Llama 3, Gemma, whatever else. But if you're using it in the cloud, you work at Google, you can use Gemini. If you work at Microsoft, you can use ChatGPT. But yeah, I think that's another thing, right? As well as like avoiding vendor lock-in when you're building products on top of large language models. I think that's pretty interesting because the prompt engineering, the way that you do retrieval, the embedding spaces, things like that, all of that can kind of trip you into a vendor lock-in very, very quickly. So that's certainly interesting. You know, I'm very thankful for the open source models that are out there that kind of democratized the access to these technologies. But yeah, I wanted to talk about kind of switching things up a little bit more. I want to talk about where we think all this stuff is going, right? And you kind of have this agentic stuff where you got Devin AI or the system that you just talked about, where you kind of send it out and you can say, hey, build this, and then you're going to come back and you're going to see 100,000 lines of code, and how do you feel getting into that as a developer, right? Sorry, go ahead.
So I've tried to push it quite a bit. At writing small snippets of code, awesome. Writing bigger blocks of code, it's very clear that it doesn't have a concept of what it's putting together. It doesn't know how to program, right? It's just kind of mimicking what it does. And so like that many lines of code, I couldn't get it much past say 50 or 100 lines of code before I started doing really dumb things, right? It would try and reference a method that just didn't exist, right? It was like not matching up the names and stuff. So I guess have I just not tried it in the last week and it's moved that fast? But
Well, that's definitely a good question. I think that we're seeing such a rapid deployment of this. The token sizes are getting much larger for your token windows. I think they are going to get better. This HyperLambda platform that I'm mentioning, it's very unique. I haven't seen many like it, so it's not like I'm running their CRM. No, I saw it write code. I didn't run a CRM, but it moved in a way that traditionally would take 8 weeks to even think about getting started in architecting. You can have a quasi prototype in 10 minutes. So it does depend on maybe the system or that layer, and it definitely would have to be API driven and not through just ChatGPT native or Gemini.
Because I really wanted to see hey, can I build whole systems with it, and it'll in one attempt I generated 400 or 500 lines of code. And the thing was, it looked great, right? I mean, the code looked really good, but there was just some nonsense in there. And going and finding the nonsense and the great looking code was freaking hard, right? And I started to wonder, should I have just written this faster myself, or should I have just done little snippets the whole way through, so I was keeping a close eye on it?
Yeah, that's actually kind of alluding to the next point, which is as I was mentioning, the agentic kind of fully autonomous systems, but then you also have systems that are built with the human in the loop in mind, right? And how do you create surface area for humans to double check, trust the process, kind of guide it along at a more macro level, right? The architecture level, the peripheral systems level. And and so on, versus like the small things that AI can do and that you do trust it to do okay, right? I would certainly say, trust is going to be an important thing, but let's talk about human-in-the-loop systems versus, fully autonomous systems. What do we think the challenges are going to be? What do we want to see? I think that's important as well. And then we'll wrap it up with a few more topics. Yeah, Mary, do you want to kick us off with some thoughts?
Sure. I think maybe it's a bit of a repeat of what I said earlier. I think you can safely rely on ChatGPT, all the GitHub Copilot, all these to generate the code that are more low level, more foundational kind of level. But again, if you go up to the higher abstraction level, that will be more of what you actually need as developers, especially. You do need to know what you're writing, things like that. And not only that, there are also you need to be testing, right? For example, you need to generate test code. I think those two will be an area that you can also leverage on AI to do it. But I also want to point out, interestingly, last week I was actually in Portugal and AWS, actually from here, from the US, but he's developer advocate, and he was like demonstrating, doing a test, and I realized the code is just Fibonacci number to test the routine. It came out Amazon Q, actually, somebody spotted in the audience, like you said, right, it's beautiful code. And I said, wait, it isn't right, it's not like generating writing, that type of stuff. So anyway, I still feel there's some time before you can reach that level of more pure trust. But you know that there's some lower level stuff you can safely trust it, but in some kind of, you need to pay attention to that too. But I think, yeah, all of these higher level abstraction will need time to actually get to actually being more perfect.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you have something.
Yeah, I'd say couldn't agree more, basically. I think a lot of the time with these systems, we're like, oh, great, I'm gonna, I don't know, build a website. Never built a website before. And so you type in, like, build a website. And you get all this, stuff flying at you. But that's just really unfair, isn't it? Like, no one does that. Like, that's not how you build code. You start with a plan, you work out, like, where does my code touch other people's code? Let's get these bits right. I think if you're working iteratively like that, you can build large systems out of these smaller, like, foundational elements, and you can do that much, much more quickly than before. And like, even just using these systems as like a rubber duck that talks back, I think currently that's where you get the most value. It's like you're talking about your code, you're planning your code, you're designing your code in collaboration with these machines. I think that's the really exciting thing that's achievable now, and yeah, I think tools that facilitate that process, that allow you to build iteratively, to save off your work, to pass it on to your colleagues. I think that's where there's real value at the moment.
So for Cincinnati, I'm a part of this AI Catalyst. Please check it out. But I know that it's very important that in Cincinnati we're keeping AI for humans and humans in the loop and responsible, ethical AI. Not everyone believes in that. A lot of people believe that AI is just going to replace a lot of different tasks. I think that what the real deal is that humans using AI are going to be able to work more efficiently, more productively than people that are not using AI. And AI is too dumb by itself to replace us at any point. I see for like a foreseeable future in several different areas of being a creative human. Now, if you want to do accounting and it's the IRS, they probably knocked it out. You don't really need a person in the loop to do like sort of tax and accounting stuff anymore. Like they'll figure out if they can build a game that the computer can understand, it'll play that game incredibly well. So with humans, we need to figure out what is a mundane task that we can automate with AI, or AI can leverage. That way it frees us up to do things that a computer's gonna have a lot of difficulty doing. So I think that's sort of the future. Is like, how do we use it as a tool, like a power tool, not so much as like this autonomous entity that's just doing everything on its own. I look at it like, you're gonna put a pool in your backyard, you could use a shovel, you use an excavator, you're gonna get a lot more done a lot quicker with the excavator. And the excavator's not gonna really do it by itself, and you would just kill yourself to try to dig this pool out by yourself. So that's really where we're at, is like, how do you focus this as a tool? And don't think that we're building Terminators that are just like there right now.
Well, I'll kind of summarize, to cap it off, but I think that we're at a point right now where we're trying to optimize AI for kind of the higher level abstraction layer. And I think it's going to be, still challenging. I think we'll get to the point where we optimize it for the code bases we have today. Maybe that's a couple 100,000 lines of code. And then we generate a whole bunch more code, and that 100,000 line code base is now 1 million lines, a year or two from now. And we'll have to reinvent the context windows, reinvent the retrieval layers, things like that. Because every time we kind of get the AI to do what we want to do, for where we are today, it accelerates a whole bunch of things, and then it's broken again, and then we have to figure out, all right, how do we fit 1 million lines of code into this context window, right, or something like that. So I think there's going to be some interesting challenges. I think the number one thing for us, especially when it comes to code generation, is the trust, right? It's like, I don't want my AI to give me a haystack and say, something in here is not working, and you, the human, you're going to have to find the needle, right? And I think that's the concerning part, I love the idea that it could get me 90% there, but that 10% could be exponentially harder if I didn't get there myself, right? And so we're trying to balance that. I've tried to keep it pretty topical beyond what Pieces does, but I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. Sam mentioned about working at the fringes, right? The code that is not easily solvable, right? The new framework upgrades, the new technologies, whatever else. Where these large language models perhaps haven't been trained on this latest stuff, right? You get a new framework upgrade for React, and ChatGPT 5 is still putting out, React 15. And you're like, okay, that's not very helpful, and then guess what? You're back in the documentation, you're reading the change log, you're trying to figure out what's going on with GitHub issues. And so often for myself, it was funny, I had a project the other day, it was to do cross-process locking using native semaphores. And I'm like, semaphores been around since like 1995, right? I'm looking at these man pages on Linux docs. I'm like, the AI is definitely trained on this. There's all types of docs out there. And about 20 minutes in, it's hallucinating. And it's telling me, on Mac OS, you can call this function, and it did not exist, right? And I was like, and so, what that did was, that kind of like sent me down a rabbit hole where I kind of like trusted it, lost 20, 30 minutes of my time, and then ended up in the browser again, 30, 40 tabs open later, a couple projects, tons of messages, things like that. And so, I mentioned this idea of human in the loop kind of systems, where you're going to be interacting, like think of like a single browser page or documentation site as a dot, right? Or a single GitHub issue as a dot, or an open project in your IDE as a dot. And your job is to connect the dots, right? What you understood in the browser, how's it related to what you're building right now, and how's that related to the conversation you're having with your team. And so what it's felt like for me is like there's an introduction of a whole bunch of new dots, right? I'm moving around a lot more, I'm context switching a bunch. And so our goal here at Pieces is not necessarily to generate code, but actually to connect those dots. So when you say, when was the last time I ran into this error? It says, you ran into this error 3 weeks ago. Here was the documentation site you were looking at. You were referencing this project, and you were talking to Sam about it. And I think for me, it's not that this generative AI can give you the solution to the error and understand it this huge code base, this monorepo, here's exactly where it is and what's going on, but it can at least help me resurface those dots at that moment in time to move along faster. And so I think the human in the loop systems are going to be really important. We believe that those systems will actually scale more sustainably than kind of, hey, Google just released a 3 million context window model. We can fit our whole code base in there, and now we're writing code much faster, and then we have the same problem again 2 years later, right? Now we're waiting on a 10 million token context window. So, I think it's really important to empathize with what is this going to do for the end developer? Does it create more noise? Does it create less noise? Does it actually solve the problem? And also just being genuine in like, this is not a magic trick, right? It's not like a catch-all. This could actually, cause more issues than good. But yeah, let's do some thoughts on some of that. Just unloaded a whole bunch of topics.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in there, but I think it's great. Innovation is great, right? All you're talking so exciting. But well, if I may actually deviate a little bit. But what about like when you're innovating, and of course AI, you're depending on it to generate results and all that. But there are cases in which it may be wrong or not ethical, right? Do you think of it in your tooling? Do you actually also think of that?
Oh yeah.
That aspect of it, right? How do you make sure it is doing the right thing?
Yeah.
That is something.
Yeah, I think it's unethical to waste a developer's time. So think about that. You know, it's like we want to be real honest about what this can and can't do, because developers are time poor. I'll tell you that. Sam, we got a couple more minutes, so maybe some closing thoughts from you and Chris. And then we can do some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the world I want to avoid is where developers are just doing PR reviews for AI generated code. I think none of us want to be there, and I think we shouldn't build for that world. I think that's my
And I think just try to use it if you're not. Some developers I've talked to over the last year just like no, or it's rapidly growing so quickly and changing so quickly that it may not work at all last week and then next week's all multimodal. You know, so it changes so fast and so rapidly that if you've read something 6 months ago, it may be out of date right now. So I would say just try to stay up on the latest of where things are happening. Definitely try to push yourself to use this stuff because no one else is using it unless you're using it yourself. So otherwise it's just in the headlines. So make sure that you're out there trying it, testing it. And if you have a couple large language models in the open source, like you can start thinking about security. You know, that might be a side where it might be better to be I get 100% if I use ChatGPT and I get 99% if I use Claude and 98% of Gemini, but you know what, I own it and I can put it on my own equipment, but I get a 96 every time. So I might lose a little bit of the capability, but I gain the ability to know exactly where my compute's at, what it's doing, what's inside my model.
100%. I think it's pretty funny, you know, I grew up with Google, right? And I quickly found out that some people are better at Googling things than others, right? And you know, it's about how you ask the questions, kind of how you rephrase it, things like that. And I think the same goes for these tools with large language models, right? Thinking about how to prompt it, how to kind of coerce it to do what you want it to do. You really have to use it, you have to have at-bats, and you have to understand its language, right? And you kind of have to, this takes time. So definitely, you know, reiterating what Chris is saying, try it out, you know, use it. It will be a tool. It is, you know, certainly coming. It is the early days, but yeah. And also too, like have a voice. You know, get out there in the communities. Like say what you want, what you don't want. You know, and I think that's super important too, because we do get to shape how these things evolve, right? We are the people that are building this stuff after all. Yeah. I know we got maybe a minute or two left. Any comments, questions from the audience? Yeah.
Sam, you had a great point on it's really good for existing stuff, less good at new stuff. Do you have a strategy for when you're interacting with it to figure out when you cross that boundary to new stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you tend to see like just a massive degradation in the sort of usefulness of the responses of like circular sort of cyclic kind of things. It'll often get more and more sure that you should be doing something which is ridiculous. And so yeah, but I think the real danger is as a sort of junior programmer or someone who's less experienced in the world, you wouldn't spot that. And yeah, I think that's one of the big dangers, because that's what everyone wants to be doing, right? Working on the fringe, and the danger is you don't notice when you really like it.
All right, I think we got to wrap it up, but thank you so much for the kind of fireside chat, you know.
One more time for our great panel. welcome everybody. This is AI for Marketing, and I can tell you, with the quality of this panel, this is going to be a killer panel discussion. So I want to start by, and I, in advance, want to apologize for how well I do the name. Vít Ramusovic. Ramusovic. Wickham is here. And Summer Crenshaw is here. Catherine O'Shea is here. And I imagine that Kendra is going to give you an opportunity to do further introduction. And Cincy is here. Cincy. Thank you. And last but not least, our moderator today is Kendra Ramirez, and Kendra is the founder and CEO of KR Digital.
Thank you. He's in the house. Good. He made it. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. I knew this was going to be a packed room, and we love being able to answer your questions as well. So we're going to fly through some of these. But really, I want to first lead off with, I think marketing can lead the way in AI adoption. Are you with me?
Yeah.
And here's the whole reason why I feel that way is we did it through digital transformation, and we're going to do it again in AI. Amen? Amen. All right, let's go. All right, so I really want to start, Pete, I want you to kick us off with, because I think it's really important for us to start with leadership. And to me, in my eyes, and what you do and the work that you do with CMOs globally, and leadership and what it means to be the CMOs and their AI adoption.
Yeah, it's a point I'm really quite passionate about. And for those of you in marketing, whatever level, whether you're a CMO, intern, it's just a great time to lead because there's so many complicated questions and tension points, dilemmas. Sometimes I call them digital dualisms. These tension points that don't really have, perfect clarity, and you just have to manage them. Scale versus agility, chaos versus collaboration, integration versus stimulation, and there's so many in the AI space. Just think about, efficiency versus ethics. There's very little you can do with AI. I think we've gotten a good feel for that downstairs with some of these amazing presentations, but how far you go, the velocity, it all has trade-offs, and this is where great leadership is so important. And so I do think we're kind of in a golden age of leadership. I remember when I applied to P&G, I think every single question was about leadership. No matter what you tried to say, they kept coming back to leadership. And I think that's what great brand builders are all about. AI is a new context. It's just moving everything a lot faster. It's bringing back some of the old issues in marketing, listening to consumers, or managing signals and the like. But yeah, think first and foremost, what kind of leader do you want to be? And then how do you want to train leaders? Because all of you are going to be in a position to mentor others. Okay?
Good afternoon, everybody. I have a little bit of a different perspective. Actually, I second what Pete was saying. However, I would like to redefine the position of a future CMO. I believe that the future is going to bring us a position of CAIO, a person that is going to work as a conductor to harmonize different departments where an additional department is going to be AI and technology. The future will also bring, that means that the future will also bring a lot of education, a lot of understanding of the tools and leadership that is capable of implementing and understanding the right tools to use for their team and their needs is going to be successful. So when I think about the future of CMO or interns starting now in marketing, I see them as the future AI people, very important AI people in the organization.
It's totally, if you feel like you want to add, feel free, or we can keep going. We got lots of questions. All right, let's roll with that. So I just think that's a good place for us to start, so thank you for doing that. And all of us want to just jump into what are some things that we can actually walk out of here, right? So I would love to hear from each of you some either AI applications, AI success that are bringing great outcomes.
So I work with clients that kind of run the gamut from a startup all the way through, larger mid-sized organizations, as my part-time side hustle outside of doing this. But one of the things that I've always concentrated on in discussing marketing with brands now is really, first and foremost, what's sucking your time? And I look at the time first and foremost, because to me, if I can solve in some meaningful way to give them their time back, then they can actually concentrate on their brand. They can concentrate on good marketing. They can concentrate on good customer solutions. So some of the systems I use pretty consistently, and Kendra and I are dorks on the same platform, but we use Make.com. So Make is like Zapier on steroids. It's easier to use. It's all basically drag and drop and visual, but you can use it for almost anything you can have as a concept. So an example of that, I was talking with a client and their big complaint was, hey, my sales reps are going out, they're selling, and then, it's taking them hours to get that, proposal out the door, and then the follow-up. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you just send the proposal instantly while you're finishing a call? They looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, no, here's what we're gonna do. We'll build out a automation, and as you are a rep on a phone call, you're getting all that feedback from your client, and your otter is taking all that information, or whatever automated phone recorder you have, but taking all that information, and then what that is doing is automatically dropping those details into a Google slide deck, and then on the back of that call, what will happen is, I set it so it would basically trigger creating the PDF of that proposal, taking that and drafting an actual email to the prospect, and then all the sales rep has to do is, once they hang up the phone, they go into their draft email box, and boom, there's the proposal, there's the highlights of the communication, all done. So for that average sales rep, that's saving them 2, 3, 4 hours. I mean, obviously we've also seen sales reps that just take forever, and it's like 6 months down the line that they finally propose something, right? But that part now, all of a sudden, those reps have the opportunity to think about telling the story of the brand, of their products. So that's where I start, what's sucking your time, and I would do that personally too, review yourself, but then from there, dive into tools like Make. Make is free until you get to so many interactions, which they count in automation as an interaction. I think you get 1,000 of those per month. So, you can do a lot with something as simple as that type of tool.
That's cool. We actually use co-pilots for the PowerPoint creation from a document. So, from a document, similar ideas I haven't heard of Make. My name is Simka Cackley, and I'm the CEO of Swivel. So we're a sales and marketing agency in Cincinnati, very small team. So I'll just share 3 examples across 3 different personas, one of them being the writer on my team, then the analyst, and then the third, the writer, the analyst, and the designer. All right, so on the writer, so we use copy.io. So the writer will use that for so many scenarios, right? From let me just get some ideas around this topic. So what are obviously the prompts are what take the most time, but the tool does give some initial prompts. It's really great for that. And there's a workflow component within copy.ai. So that has been game-changing because, just like Summer mentioned, the automation combined with AI is what really saves time ultimately in workflows and processes. So it does connect to Zapier. It does connect to HubSpot. There are ways to connect your output even to LinkedIn postings, right? So create 5 posts that are under 300 words from this blog. That's an example of something that my writer would do. And obviously he has to edit and has to provide instructions to the AI around who are we targeting. The better the instructions are, the better the output's gonna be. And so he's been refining those instructions, and then the model then is saved for in the future. The nice thing is with Copy AI in particular is you can load your brand, like language, website. It'll like start to learn the voice and the brand and the value prop. We literally load up the value proposition and the target persona and make sure it knows that so that it understands that in context of providing suggestions. So that's the writer persona. Second, I think I'm taking too much time. Analyst uses it. Let's take an example. I'm getting too high of bounce rates in my HubSpot. So they upload 2 files to, he uses ChatGPT, and tell me which variables lead, what are the common factors in this data set that leads to a higher bounce rate. So by eliminating 50% of the database of the prospect records, we can improve bounce rate by 2 times, and that matters when you're trying to improve your sender reputation, if that makes sense. So you can ask it to look at multiple fields, including number of employees, revenue, all kinds of different data points, and have it look for commonalities. And then third is our designer. We use Midjourney. So for that, it's concepts that we're trying to convey. Like for example, we're trying to convey all-in-one, and we want to use metaphors around that. It provides concepts so that we're not completely designing things from scratch.
I'll just add a couple things really quickly. Just get really practical. So if anyone saw the Pieces pitch yesterday, so good. They're doing phenomenal work, and now what they have created, I'm forgetting the name of what that is, contextual something. They have a really cool name for it now. But you don't have to be a software dev person to get a lot of value out of that local company. You can do some really contextual based search for like your own instance that I think marketing teams could get a lot of value out of, sales and marketing teams. So that's another one, and then custom GPT. Speaking of, there's a lot of movement towards making sure like you can have your own kind of data set, your own even tiny LLM. So lean into that as well, especially whether you're running teams or whether you're a freelancer. Keep building up all of that repertoire of data and information so that you don't have to do a lot of that kind of like thinking manual work of like, where did I say that, or why did that with that one customer, whatever that may be. The ability now to call on that information really quickly and then move into all of these beautiful workflows that they're talking about. So I guess I'm pulling us back to even the very beginning, like even before you get into those workflows.
Okay, you got at least. I mean, Catherine's with Narratize. You got at least. Narratize is a fantastic tool. Please use it.
So Narratize, and our focus is on the whole of a innovation lifecycle workflow. So definitely working with sales and marketing, but how do we make that bridge from sales and marketing with the technical team? If you guys have heard Katie talk, I don't need to reiterate that. But I think finding those tools, if that is your situation, finding those tools that help pull together different teams that aren't just focused on the one instance, the one kind of deliverable that you need to do.
Thank you. I want to make sure. Yes. Thank you so much. I love that. What about when you are, working within your teams or your clients, and you're faced with the challenges of helping them adopt or implement some of the things that you're encouraging them to do? Any tools, techniques there?
So in my experience, and we heard it just 5 minutes ago on the other panel, there are 3 types of people: those who are early adopters or IT people who adopted AI. Sometimes they are suffering horrible anxiety because of FOMO and all the tools that are coming out every day. The other type of people are those who are afraid of using AI, and the third ones are those who tried maybe AI, gave a wrong prompt, got the wrong information back, and they just don't trust it anymore. Depending on who your client or who the person is in front of you, the adoption of AI system is going to be hard or easy. However, even before using any kind of tool, I would go even a step further and talk about AI governance in order to explain how AI tools can help you make any kind of task that you want more efficient and give you time for your creativity and innovation. You need also to understand what is that tool, where do you source your information, and where do you get your data, and how eventually your data is being protected once you feed it into the system. Once the client or the person decides about that, then the sky is the limit. There are so many tools that you can use. Honestly, I'm using OpenAI, I'm using customized chats because I can feed everything there, and I have 20 of my customized chatbots that are giving me different results based on what I need to solve. Another thing besides the governance, once you decide about that, is having a roadmap how your company is going to use AI. Right now I'm working with a client where it's like a strategic document. That's why marketeers are very good at it. We are thinking about all the whys and hows, what can happen, what if then that, in using AI, implementing it into a company, and then deciding, how the company is going to use it.
Yeah, really practical, I would say, might quote, Plato, just know thyself. And what I mean by that is, and I'm gonna try to say this without using the word AI, it's so important to use these technologies as a mirror into your brand identity and essence. You have to know what the starting point, and these algorithms are determining who you are based on a lot of signals that you don't have complete control over. And if you want to do something really practical, study what the signals are saying about your brand and tell your boss. They may find that boring, but you tell the boss because that is becoming part of the new shopper cycle. At Brand Break we call that the prompted moment of truth. Because remember, when you type in your brand into Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, Grok X, what you get is a single response, not 10 blue links. And so that has huge persuasive impact. And I will bet the farm that for most of you, what you're going to see in those definitions is not what you want to see. Now, the startup that I've created is about doing that at scale, hundreds of comparisons, far more complicated and probably more expensive than you need. But again, the AI revolution is an access revolution. You can do a lot of this in your sleep or by the time I'm done talking. And a lot of this comes down to the old-fashioned, boring brand fundamentals. Listening. Every time I throw out another buzzword at Nestle, my boss kept saying, keep it simple, Pete. Listening, engaging, inspiring, and transforming. And what the AI revolution is doing is giving us an incredible window into really listening. And I'm going to throw a compliment at Summer because I've been analyzing everything that's been said about Cincinnati since I started running Centrifuge 5 years ago, and then I left. And I can say with absolute confidence that what's happened in the last 3 days has fundamentally changed what is coming up in AI search results because of the conversation here. And so part of brand building today is how we are marketing to algorithms and influencing that prompted moment of truth. But you got to start with the listening, the boring stuff.
So when you're engaging clients, I typically actually train my clients on anything that I've delivered. I kind of take that open source methodology and I kind of show how the sausage is made, so to speak. So that means I'm using things like Loom to do actual videos on how I get from point A to point B. I also always create SOPs for my clients. So, it's one thing to say, hey, we're going to do this and here's the plan, but it's another thing to say, oh, by the way, here's how you continue on, because not all clients, especially in the small business arena, can afford to keep you on a retainer for, extended period of time, right? So I use tango.us, and you can literally record yourself every behavior that you do online. So let's say you want to teach them how to post something on social media. Obviously, I don't think most people have a struggle with that. But what it'll do is, as you take your cursor and you type in linkedin.com and then you hit the button, it actually screen captures that across the board, and then it creates a PDF of exactly how to do point A to point B based on your behavior. So super fast, and it's like, well, might as well record that and hand that on over to the client, so then they're not, badgering you on how to do X, Y, or Z. So I'm a firm believer. Just if you're already doing it, just hit the button that Tango, and then boom, you've got that, and it's such a value add to a client.
One of my favorites, yes, I love that. Thank you so much. So a lot of questions come up about content generation or image generation and copywriting. I didn't know if anyone wanted to address that as well. That gets asked everywhere you go.
Listen, I'll open up with a little story. So at times I feel a little bit like an imposter because I use AI a lot. And so I jumped into John, one of the organizers with Summer, and he said, dude, that was an amazing article you wrote. And I've been trying to write little articles on LinkedIn. And yeah, I felt proud of it. It's getting a lot of likes, but there's so many great ways of generating copy. So what I did is you guys are all doing amazing stuff. I've never seen so much content created at a single Cincinnati-based event. So last night I literally I kind of just scraped it. I just cut and paste, and I just threw it into notes, notes, and then I didn't worry about the order. I figured let the AI stress out about connecting the dots. And I tried to find as much good content, and I was a little bit okay, let's make sure I've got a nice distribution among speakers. And then I just wrote a really good prompt, and I said, I want to give a high five to the great conversation. I'd like you to make sense of the 5 themes, and then I'd like you to find 20 quotables or insights. And I think I maybe started with 35, and I narrowed it down. But it was like a half-hour process, but it was substantive, and I wanted to give love to a lot of people that were part of creating that content, because everybody likes being mentioned. But it didn't take very long, and it looked really good. And it was not like plagiarism or cheating. It was just a little technique of taking amazing content, synthesizing it, putting it on a channel that's fundamentally viral. So don't be intimidated by, oh my gosh, I gotta create an article. There's a lot of ways of doing it, and sometimes the best articles are just summarizing what other people have said. You don't have to be an original thinker. It's good to kind of put a little header on that, but you can do that tomorrow, today.
So in addition to this, and synthesis is a wonderful thing, especially for people who are dealing with content, especially for people whose English is not mother language. I would say too, that's an additional value to this. But think about, and I talk about this aspect all the time, about the democratization that AI can bring, especially to the countries where English is not a speaking language. Now you can use a customized chat in Montenegrin, which is my mother language, and you can create with some prompts content that is at the level of TMG, or replicate, not copy, but having it as a prompt, what is a good content. Imagine all the countries in the world or imagine all the small nonprofits in Cincinnati that have budget 0 for marketing or for content creation, how they can look at the best in the class without using millions of dollars or using a specific amount and then use narratives. But anyway, you don't need a lot anymore to create a good content, and I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, we obviously talk about this live and breathe IP copyright because of the enterprises and groups that we're working with. And so these are themes that we're hearing, right? Themes that we're hearing. Trust is number 1. You have to make sure that whatever platform you're using, if you're creating content, that is a really important part of how you need to create that and how you're going to share that. then make sure you're using the platforms, the tools that you feel like you can trust, that your clients can trust. If they don't trust it, then figure out why and work to educate them on that as well. I think that's really important. Keep the human at the heart of it as well, right? I am sure in some future vision that the AI will be able to think in some really nuanced, human, tacit ways, but that's not where we are now, right? Right now, it is repeating a lot of the things that it's learning. There is like a little bit of a kind of infant toddler version that we're in. So for us, if you keep that nuanced, creative, unique perspective at the heart of that content, and the more of that that's there, the more that you're using AI to help amplify, infuse, organize, add in some extra pieces of that are well cited, then it won't be as hard of a problem around IP, copyright, patent, and also there's some really phenomenal tools that are coming out that will check for that as well. I met someone at a conference, her whole startup was about making sure that some of the originators of content, that workflow, that person, and how their pieces of work are getting readapted, are traced, and her whole proposition is eventually they'll be able to get royalties. So there's also some really cool ways that people are combating, sounds like really kind of a fighting pose, I don't mean that, but working to make sure that we are able to leverage the power of AI, but not kind of get rid of all of the challenges of IP and patent and copyright.
Awesome, thank you. So I would love for each of you, something that's just burning on your heart. So you're like, I want to make sure these people walk away with this. And it could be about what's going on now or future trends. Where do you think things are going?
How many of you have gotten a LinkedIn message that clearly was automated and or like not personalized? Yeah.
And it's crap.
It's and then it's delete, right? So what we've been doing, and it's like an 8-step prompt, but what we've been doing is identifying, scrape the LinkedIn profile, scrape the company website, scrape the internet for positive news about the company and or person, and then personalize the first sentence. So how would you be more likely to respond to something that said, hey, congrats on achieving your promotion, or, that's actually a fairly common one, sorry. I just saw your post on innovation at Cincy AI Week, like, wow, that you were able to go there, how was the event? That would be a little bit more likely to respond to. Or I just saw you liked a post on a friend about this topic. I totally agree, right? That's gonna come across way more personalized. Or congrats on your company achieving the employee of the best place to work award. I don't think that's been automated just yet. So we, do like a 8-step process, and it's basically, scrape, then, based on the value proposition that I'm telling you that the company has, transition that to opening up a conversation about our value proposition, and give dignity and make sure that we're like complimenting and not challenging. Those are like just some of the things we'll give instructions for, and the response rate is fabulous. It's significant. 5 times higher response rate than the original set with no personalization. So that was just one I wanted to share.
So the thing that is burning in me is that we've got to stop chasing productivity for productivity's sake. I think with all of these tools, we all use them. Yes, it's making us more productive, but that doesn't mean, okay, you just freed up 3 hours, now add an additional 3 hours of time. We've got to be very thoughtful of saying, okay, yes, I'm getting efficiencies and I'm doing this, and to me, it'll just spell out being like chasing the robot, so to speak. We're not robots, right? I know, with your clients or with your company, sometimes they think, okay, marketing can solve all, right? They can do everything. Oh, because you were able to produce something quickly, then you need more on your plate, right? And I think for marketers, we have to be very thoughtful about how we protect our time and ourselves mentally. Honestly, I think that's something that I'm seeing a lot of marketers burn out to the core. And it's just because more and more and more is being thrown at you because you now have tools that'll help solve it. So I think the big thing for AI and this revolution that is coming is that we have got to lean into being the human being and not the human doing. And it's going to take the marketers of the world to say, wait a minute, this is a time in our history where we can actually lean in more as a human and let the little task robots do what it does and have real meaningful development of things around your brand and around doing the human connection, which is going to be, it has been a desperate need. But now we'll free up the time to actually go more human-centered.
Love that, Summer. One thing that we talk about a lot at Narratize is making sure that AI is not the end-all be-all. It is a tool that we can use. So what are you actually trying to do instead of just being like, I just need to use AI, right? So for us, we keep calling it the AI toolbox. I was just like, there's all sorts of different ways that we'll be able to use it. There's all sorts of different methods. And again, I forget who said this in the conference, but of course everything is getting infused with AI. That is actually kind of how it should be, rather than that's the only thing that you're getting out of that platform. You should find platforms that are helping you get to your end goal, and then of course they should have an AI infused in it as well. And then one perspective that I really appreciated from a talk I saw the other day is, she's a data scientist out of Australia, and she's studying kind of AI trends, and she gave this great image, and she said, we are still at the Ask Jeeves part of the AI revolution. And that was so, because I feel like the ground moves beneath us constantly. So I know even for myself that is working in an AI company, it feels like every day there's something else. I'm like, how am I supposed to keep up? And that's good. We should all be learning. We should all be like trying things out and educating ourselves as much as possible. But don't try to feel like I have to understand it all, what's happening today, because you will overwhelm yourself. So just remember, we are in the Ask Jeeves phase of AI. So just do what you can to keep leaning in and figuring out, but don't get so overwhelmed that you disengage.
I don't know if there is anything to add here. Besides a very deep personalization that I see it's coming, I can't wait for a moment that I can use Montenegrin to put something in a computer, and the computer or an app is directly replying in my language about a product that is being sold in Brazil, and so on and so on. We are not very far from there. Another thing that I really find interesting is how AI can connect countries and worlds in a more meaningful way. We know now that European Union, European Commission has brought a new AI Act law about talking more reliable AI, or how would you say, inventing or working with more reliable AI. I just read this morning that Brazil judiciary system is using ChatGPT for their court cases to speed up the processes. So I can see so many activities and efficiencies being dealt with AI. However, our role as marketeers here is very important, because we can also push this story to be more ethical and reliable by deciding which tools we are going to use, by asking for more transparent data sets, and so on and so on. Because our decisions here in the United States, and I'm coming from a conference in Montenegro now, are being watched there with a lot of intensity. People are waiting to see what companies are going to do here, because it's going to be replicated on other parts in the world.
Yeah, I'm passionate today about precisely what I was passionate about when I left my great job at Centrifuge to launch a startup, and that is brand truth. I mean, our tagline is prompting your brand truth. I believe passionately in brand alignment, do what you say, and there's absolutely no question that AI is the world's greatest BS detector. And it's like my Italian mother, who just would not let me dance around any element of truth. And so there's an accountability element to that, There are opportunities to make a lot of headway in ethics, transparency, trust, when in fact we think about AI as that BS detector. And I say that in a way that, it's not like a negative thing, but it's just, this is why I say that the fundamentals, the boring basics of kind of getting that right. And the reality is that a lot of brands have a great story. I think where brands hold themselves back is they don't know how to tell it. We've been doing coaching for a lot of brands after our audit, and one of the things that we found is that they do not understand algorithmic anchors. Those are the sources that disproportionately feed into your brand truth when someone searches you. The biggest one by far is the brand website, but we all know that brand websites have either flatlined or declined on innovation for the last 10 to 15 years because we shifted everything to where we thought the consumer was in social. This is a great opportunity for all of you in a very practical way to go to your organization and say, hey, if you want better standing, if you want more credit for your truth, you gotta overhaul the websites, and there's some very simple things you can do. Most of us are horrible at providing FAQs. Most of us don't even have search engines. Most of us don't adhere to principles of content liquidity. I was telling Kroger the other day, they're really doing really well on zero waste, but they put everything on PDFs. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, that is not AI friendly. So you're getting a 2 on zero waste when you should be getting a 4. So all of you really need to understand how to market to algorithms. If you believe your brand truth should be breaking through, you have to reverse engineer and get it right. And the good news is that those of you who are passionate about brand building in the digital age, there is so much work to do. If you're an agency, if you're in the firm, we're in a reset mode. But you have to have the data first. That's why I'm so passionate about the diagnostics up front, because that will kind of give you the mojo to bring to the CMO, whoever, to kind of drive the transformation.
Wow, thank you so much. I love that. So I want to, because I know that there's burning questions, so I want to open it up for this last couple of minutes that we have here. Anyone have a question for these brilliant minds? Yes?
How do you suggest getting better at prompt generation?
How do you get better at prompt generation?
Practice, use the models, right?
You've heard the mic.
You gotta tell them.
Use the models.
Yes.
Yes, we should all, if that's a part of your job, if that feels like how you need to be using it. Prompt generation, there was, I would say a few years ago, there was everyone's gonna be a prompt engineer, there's gonna be so many jobs for prompt engineers. There are really no prompt engineering jobs. There was a report that just came out that's a very minor amount. So it's a great question, but actually the LLMs, if we're thinking about it in that way, are better at prompting themselves than we will ever be, because they understand. This now sounds so meta, but they understand themselves better than we will. But so you have to turn it on its head for sure.
All right, so I have just one little thing. So when you put in your prompt, and the last statement, after you've given it context, say, ask me questions for clarity. Then it will start prompting you and will game change all of your prompting. You do not need to go buy these 1,000-pack prompts. Everybody and their brother's like, buy my 1,000-pack prompts. You don't need them. You don't need them. All right, I think we've got time for one more.
You guys a lot.
Oh, and
that's pretty practical.
who knows how to write a creative brief? That is essentially prompting. So go back to your creative brief, look it up.
Yes, yes. I think we got time for one more. Clara. Clara.
So I have been wondering, what is the best way you would recommend to? I have a small agency business where I have several clients, and I'm going back and forth between in trying to train it. Should I upload all the content from my clients into my business, or should I create a separate, say, GPT for each client? And the clients are really small, so I don't know that it's worth it, but maybe
We've done separate for each client because of the context it learns and the value props, and they're all different, the voice is different, so we've done it separately.
I was gonna say too, custom GPT who's here,
Yes.
that's what they can do. You could build your own bot essentially for your business and the way that you handle your clients, and then contextually train for each one of your clients. So they use the RAG system And I think that they're pretty affordable as far as, building something out, but you could actually have a full custom version that's not just OpenAI. Actually have it protected, have that your client's data protected, so you're not uploading, private information into the world. Have those guardrails put in place, but have it so that it is very much your way of doing marketing is infused in it along with the information that's coming from your clients.
Please make sure and connect with each one of our panelists. As you can see, brilliant minds are here. We're all in this together. And so thank you so much, panelists. I really appreciate you coming.
So thank you.
be an interactive. So that is a really cool gift to us by CustomGPT.ai. When I first met their CEO, Alden, there were no free trials. I talked to him in 7 days, and somehow we've talked him into giving us a free month. So thank you for CustomGPT to open up the accessibility of even using AI at low cost, no cost. And I think that if you sign up, you don't have to put a credit card in. You might see some sticker shock because it somehow defaults to the premium plan. Choose the monthly plan and it goes to free, and that's right under $100 a month. But like I said, your first month's totally free, and at some point, either you're going to be canceled out or you have to put a credit card in your stride to keep it going. Hopefully this is a session that sort of launches your RAG AI building into the future. I want to introduce two great sort of executives at CustomGPT. They came down from Boston. We have Eli and Ethan here. Hello, you guys. So to give a little background, CustomGPT, I operate a Facebook group called ChatGPT for Business and Life. It's one of the largest AI groups out, like even on the internet, which is really cool. Their CEO, Alden Rosario, was one of the first members building development. He got awakened from his dogmatic slumber when generative AI dropped, and he said, this is my next time to build a good company. He had exited in the 2000s with his previous company, and he said he was just sort of twiddling his thumbs until this generative AI movement happened. So he's been a great supporter of our group. He's also built what not only is, in my opinion, the best RAG-based AI, but one that's been tested to be the best RAG-based AI by Tonic.ai. What that means, retrieval augmented generation, simply means you're using your information first and training an AI agent, a chatbot, on your information. So it's not just pulling natively from like a ChatGPT, it's based upon your organization's data and information. So with that, I do have one cool story. Back in November, if you know Maurice Coffey, he's the Procter & Gamble executive in residence here. He came to me, put together something called the Nitro Boot Camp. It was a phenomenal experience. We were able to turn on 30 different companies to technologies in the AI space. CustomGPT was one, and it was really one of the keynote, most important solutions right there with Canva Pro. So Canva, if you're in marketing, you see how impactful that is. This was on the side of actually building an AI chatbot. At the Nitro Boot Camp, we had 60 minutes. Oh, let me say that again. We had 90 minutes, and in that 90 minutes, we built and assisted the companies to build our own chatbots, an internal chatbot and an external chatbot in that 90-minute time frame. So we built 60 chatbots for 30 companies, and we did it incredibly fast, and many of the companies that implemented it back in November are now using it in their business today. So it was great that we started here first. They may think they started it in Boston somewhere, but I think that we were the very first people in the United States that had a workshop that launched AI solutions. So this is a repeat of that. I'm going to hand it over to them. If you want to set this up on the fly on your computer and you have any questions, just put your hand up and I'll come over and help. I'm going to let them run with it from here. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate that. We'll kind of wait for a couple more people to come through, but I'm Ethan. I'm the marketing manager at CustomGPT. This is Eli, our sales manager. And this is the product. As you guys can see, I know you guys are finishing your lunch, but if anyone has a laptop and they're interested, please type in this web address here. This will do a landing page. We'll break down everything that we do, allow you to start that free trial that Chris was talking about. Just get to start the conversation going. How many people are interested in implementing AI into their business, but don't really know where to start? Awesome. That's exactly what we do. We make AI accessible to businesses and allow you to build a custom GPT. Our standard plan is $99 a month. We work with a team of really incredible AI experts and an in-house sales team in Boston, and allow you to upload your own information and create a working custom GPT that you can deploy on your website as an embed, as a live chat, on the back end for internal communication and knowledge management, in a Slack chain, on Google Drive. There's a ton of different implementations
all for a really low rate of $99 a month. We're gonna give you guys 30 days for free. You should be able to try anything you guys want, ingest a sitemap, ingest PDFs. We work with over 1,400 different types of files, and this is one of the most user-friendly, low-code, no-code platforms out there. So very accessible. Anyone who's got a laptop right now, let's just type this in. If you are on a phone and you don't have a laptop, you can scan this QR code right now. It's a little harder to build it on your phone, but we do have capabilities for mobile. I'll wait a little bit for people to kind of sign that up. But basically what we're going to do today is Eli over here basically made a very quick project for Cincy AI Week. And what we did is we ingested the sitemap of Cincy AI Week, took the schedule, took all the speakers, took all the information, and created a custom GPT in 7 minutes, I believe. Okay, we'll do it live, excellent. Here, I'm going to pass it off to Eli. We're going to keep going with this demonstration. If anyone wants to, we're going to follow along. We're going to do it step by step so we can build it together. Those QR codes that we gave you today, and this web address is going to be live for the next 30 days. Please, at your leisure, feel free to go when you get home on a laptop. It'll take 15 to 20 minutes. You can build a custom GPT based on your knowledge base, whatever it might be.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here. So as I said, if you want to build with us, totally do it. If not, just watch along, whatever works for us. Essentially, we'll get started here. So when you want to begin, you do come in here. This is what your dashboard looks like before you begin to build some amazing GPTs. In this case, you can really choose what data you want, whether you want to upload a website, a YouTube channel, a bunch of PDFs of internal documentation. You more or less choose what information you want to search through. So if you wanted to build a GPT for your website, you upload a website. If you want to build one internally, you upload, for example, your HR documents or your onboarding materials to hand over to your employees. For this example, we're going to take the simple Cincy AI Week website. And easy as this. So if you're not familiar with sitemaps, we do have a simple sitemap finder tool that essentially grabs the link that you can then paste into your GPT. So take this, come back to the dashboard, and you create a project. Now you simply paste it and you name your project. All right, now, once you've hit create, what's set in motion here, the GPT is now created, and it's going to now locate and find all the URLs within this website, or we're going to locate and find all the files. So now we found about 30 items, there's 30 pages, also known as 30 links, within the Cincy AI Week website. And now, depending on the size of the site, it's going to take some time to index. So we've already seen that one of the links as indexed here. And what it's doing is it's crawling through each of the pages and ingesting all of the text for you to then be able to query the actual information within the site. So now it's processing, it's pretty much ready to go. Once it says ready, you can start actually asking questions to the GPT and getting results from it. A bit of background on the settings within this. Once you've uploaded to your sitemap, you can also upload any type of files. So whether it's a PDF, doc file, CSV, simple as a drag and drop, click and upload. We also have a Zapier integration if you want to do no-code flows, like with your email, for example, and you can integrate to your Gmail. We also have some other integrations like Confluence to bring in some of those knowledge bases. Now here, within the chatbot settings, you can of course brand this, whether you're deploying internally on a portal or externally on a website. You can change your avatar, background colors, images, and everything like that. Conversation settings, but a really big draw of our actual platform for businesses and educational institutions is the response source. When you're building a GPT with our platform, it only responds based on the content that you've uploaded. So if you've uploaded 500 PDFs about a specific subject, when you're asking questions to the GPT and conversing with it, it only responds based on that content as long as you leave this on default. You can turn on ChatGPT if you want to, but it kind of depends on the use case, if you need to be a bit more creative versus more accurate. Of course, so our background is GPT. You can pick which model you want to use. 4.0 is the default, newest, fastest version, and languages, of course, can switch between, just like ChatGPT. Some pretty important things along with responding from your data is citations. So whenever you ask a question to the GPT, the response from your data also gives you a citation directly to the web page, to the PDF document that it's pulling from. So you can then click into the source so you know it's actually grounded data, not pulling from ChatGPT or any other sources. In here, this component we'll go over in just a second. So at this point, all the information is indexed. So we now have 30 pages from Cincy AI Week Index, and I'm going to give it out to the crowd. Anyone have a specific question related to the conference that they want me to type in here?
What was the lunch and learn on Wednesday?
Sure.
So it's pulling directly from that source. Let's click on that citation really quickly to see if we can go back to that web page. And it'll pull that direct page where it's actually listed. This is, how long has it been? 3 minutes since we ingested that first bit of information?
Now, oh, yeah.
Could you ask the question like, what are people saying about Cincy AI?
So not necessarily unless there is information and feedback from people on the website we just ingested. So the actual knowledge base is just that 30 pages. That's the only information this GPT is aware of.
But could you ask if like, hey, go source the internet and you can understand?
So no, with our tool, it is more isolated. So you're only giving it information to use from what you decide to choose from. So for here, now I'm going to give you an example of how our persona can give you even better results than simply just uploading information.
And for those who don't know persona, very simple prompt engineering. It's kind of our written text way to design the function, style, and personality of your agent. There's some incredible use cases that are developed with the persona, and we've seen some incredible back and forths with the sales agent, some incredible use cases that can be developed by adapting and optimizing your persona. So, yeah.
So here what we're doing is creating persona. So this is instructions, kind of a backbone for what your GPT's role is for your own business. So for this specific example, we're creating an external GPT to help visitors, people coming to Cincy AI Week event, learn more about the offerings, navigate through the different days, see what events they want to go to. So this persona generator is really good for people who don't want to spend time actually writing out any kind of prompt engineering or deciding what they want the tone to be. So I'm simply going to tell it, I'm thinking, so just tell it, make a GPT for this event's website, give it some information, and now it's going to create a quick persona that is related directly to Cincy AI Week. So here, role and goal, official GPT for Cincy AI Week. Your goal is to provide accurate, helpful information about events, schedules, speakers, and whatnot. And then all you have to do once this is created is copy it and then paste it right into here. Now I'm going to ask the same question I asked previously with this persona in place, and you can see maybe the difference in response after having this persona. So, obviously, live demo was really prepared with that direct question, but what we can do here now is experience how the persona can actually change the way the bot is behaving here. So currently, I can ask about the CI week, like what should I go to? And now it's going to give me a quick rundown of each day's different events that are available here.
So what you're seeing right now is our in-app functionality, and we're like 2/3 away through building our custom GPT. The last third of the component about our service, in addition to a lot of the features we provide, is the deployment capability. That's one of the things that makes us unique. So.
Yes?
You pointed to more than one website or source?
Just one source. So frankly, 30 pages is fairly limited data for a GPT to work off of, which is good and bad, of course. It's really pointed, but again, your questions do have to be quite specific, and the source data needs to be really good to draw off of it. So what we're going to do here, right, I already entered the simple persona. Now I'm going to add a simple instruction to the persona, and we can see how the GPT responds and behaves differently after we add this. So now I'm adding an instruction. If your user inquires about what events to attend, ask them what they're interested in learning and share with them relevant events to their interests. this could be really helpful because people may not know maybe what they want to do when they're coming to the website. So in this case, the GPT is actually going to interact with them directly and be more conversational, like a person would be if they were calling on the phone about the event. Hey, like I don't know what events I want to go to. Well, the person would probably be like, hey, what industry are you in? What are you interested in?
So here, as you see, a slight difference. So right now, to help you choose the best events to be helpful to know your specific interests, feel free to let me know specific interests. I can provide you more tailored recommendations. So now if I were, for example, specifically in the marketing industry, I could say, hey, I want to learn more about marketing and AI. And yeah, that's your result there. So I'll be honest, maybe not the best data source chosen, as the information is maybe not super robust on there, but we did just build a GPT in about 3 minutes. We added a custom persona. Next step, if I did have access to the actual Cincy AI website without writing any code, I can go to here, share, simply enable, click copy, and I can go and paste this on the Cincy AI Week, and absolutely anyone can talk to this GPT. They don't need an OpenAI account, they don't need a custom GPT account. They can come in and begin talking to the GPT. And for some examples, this is some different ways you can actually deploy these on websites. So we've all seen the regular kind of generative or basic chatbot more or less on websites in the bottom right. We have some awesome different kind of deployment options here. So this is one way, a live chat modal that you can deploy on your website. And this actual GPT is not a basic Linktree bot. This actually has thousands of pages, thousands of different links and whatnot in it. It can actually answer questions about pretty much anything related to our company itself. And you can also deploy as an embed, all this. And again, this is all with using no code, no prior abilities. As long as you can copy and paste, drag and drop, you can build and deploy a GPT with your own data.
Yeah. After you were to try to use like a social media site, if you want to try it on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, you need an account that would allow you to do that. You want to ask questions about that.
Sure, good question. So it kind of depends on the format of the data. If you were to like export some kind of feed from Twitter, for example, you can maybe upload it as a CSV file. I mean, to pull in live social media, maybe through API, but it wouldn't necessarily be the best space as we are RAG systems. The most important part is having really good data to then retrieve answers from. The more robust the data is, the more complete it is, like a blog, for example, maybe a little edited snippets from Twitter, then you can definitely upload pretty much any wild type of information if you go ahead and try it out.
You want to see that in action? Something with a little bit bigger feed. So what we put together with the group that I have, we have all of these members that are coming in from all different types of usage of AI, from just learning how to use it in person to like maybe being a very hardcore developer. So what I built, I was able to aggregate into sort of using the YouTube API into the AI Online Classroom, 6,000 videos on AI. And then I was able to train the RAG AI on that information. So there's some really cool things you can do with the RAG AI. I also worked with a guy from the MIT Media Lab, Brendan McSheffley, and he's really working on the persona side. Like, how do you build a persona that's not a big wall of text? If you have a chatbot, you don't necessarily want it to just, hey, here's all the information in the entire world. That's great, but that's not so helpful. Maybe I don't know enough about you. You can actually train the persona to ask you questions. So for us, we put to AI. Where do I start? You know, and what's cool, since it's trained on my sitemap, and you can train this on multiple sitemaps, it's actually bringing in the links from my website that's going to push you to the right video to watch. So that's a really great use case where if you're you have a system of content that's solid, it's a great solution, especially if you have a sitemap. So like, what is AI Online Classroom? I have all types of videos, like I said, 6,000, and it trains on the data that's provided. What we do find is that like YouTube, when you aggregate in, this is a great Lex Friedman podcast all about the AI and people over there. However, like when you realize when you aggregate in a YouTube video, it does depend upon the title and the text that are under the YouTube, which are very poorly written typically. It's not the transcript. So there's ways that we've been working with going to YouTube, pulling the transcript, having the AI rewrite it. That way we're putting it under the video. And then the AI for Custom GPT looks at the website every day and updates it. So as the site changes, it modifies itself. You'll see this, another one that was a really big one, D'Artagnan app, which was by Dr. Jared Humphreys of Xavier University earlier this year. He actually made it on the news, which is pretty cool. Like, let's see if we can find Jared Humphreys, Xavier, and AI. Okay, so first of its kind program. So he had his entire student class go to all of the university websites. He pulled it like 250 to 500 websites, assigned each of his students like 10 universities to look at. They found sitemaps where they're available. Sitemaps are what Google indexes your site. So in theory, most of these sites have a sitemap. They can't have a login parameter. So if you have LinkedIn and Facebook, that's the big deal, is that there's a login parameter, so it can't hop that. But using XML and also PDFs, he was able to upload 250 schools worth of content into this system. And now it's like a leading ethical AI for professors and students on how to use AI in the classroom ethically and responsibly. So that made news. That was really cool, and just built on this platform. And Jared, great professor, MBA, coding, zero coding knowledge, really, was able to build something fairly significant. And that's where probably the big power of Custom GPT resides. So if you were like, let's say you're a nutritionist, there's probably an amazing website out there about nutrition. Maybe it's food.com or nutritionfacts.org or something like that. Let's say that's super robust and you're a coach or a trainer. You can pull in that sitemap and your business sitemap and then build a persona that it's the best nutritionist and it's going to help you build nutrition plans, let's say. The system will do that very well. So if you're leveraging open source information, this is probably the best solution to build an AI chatbot that can be very impactful.
You guys, as an example, could you include the knowledge that's in ChatGPT at the same time?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. We actually have an integration built in, so if you are looking for an open source or just to access the general internet, you can change the model source to not just be your content. You can incorporate ChatGPT right there. I'll use that. I'm in marketing, so when I'm creating design implementations or I'm looking at strategies or different email campaigns, I will incorporate my content plus ChatGPT. So it's trained on everything that Custom GPT is trained with. Our YouTube channel, our podcast channel, PDFs of different open source material and things like that, and our website plus ChatGPT. So the sky's the limit pretty much with our system.
So do you actually do a phase approach where you actually do a custom GPT first and sort of make sure your domain is sort of like internalized before actually doing your custom GPT plus ChatGPT?
So we're always wary, and we work with a lot of very high scrutinized industries where accuracy is absolutely critical. So I'm always upfront, and I think our whole team's very upfront about knowing which source you're pulling from. So if you're interested in the general ChatGPT and the general World Wide Web, absolutely use ChatGPT or my content plus ChatGPT. But if you're just trying to train the system, like we work with a ton of different lawyers. So a law student will ingest their entire coursework for the semester and not incorporate ChatGPT because they don't want hallucinations. I'm sure you guys have heard that before. Our anti-hallucination technology trains the agent and responds from the agent only on the content that it's given. That's what makes us kind of unique, and that's the lane we've chosen. But we just kind of showed you guys a practical application. I really do want to open it up for questions. This is very new. It's kind of a no-code system, and we want to work with as many small businesses as possible because this is accessible AI. A lot of the times, you guys will have, a large organization will have teams of engineers and machine learners or AI experts. This is something that my parents have implemented, that we work with a ton of different clients who are not that technical across the globe. So I just kind of want to open up to the floor if anyone has general questions. Start right here.
Curiosity question, like where are you seeing, what industries or sectors are you guys getting the traction in right now? I'm just kind of curious, like who are your early adopters on something like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll touch on that. Lawyers, like I just mentioned, tax organizations use us a ton. Marketing firms are really interested in us, and kind of also there's a ton of ancillary industries that come from custom GPT. I have a customer named Kathy in Canada who subscribes to our premium plan, which gives her 100 different agents trained on separate data, and she is in turn selling these custom agents to her clients and building them for their own website. We work with government consultants. One use case is RFIs, request for information. One of our clients used to spend, had a team of 3 individuals working on this RFIs, would take them around a week to complete. Now they have one person using custom GPT and it takes them 2 to 3 hours. So anyone where you have a ton of information, a ton of different knowledge, frankly, anyone who has a knowledge base is a potential customer, but those are like 3 core industries that we've been working with a lot. Also, higher education. We work with MIT, we're brokering partnerships. We just have a grant program at the University of Michigan, and a couple others, hopefully in Cincinnati, relatively soon. Yeah, Drew.
I'm trying to find out if a custom GPT is, if I'm going down the right road. So I have an Excel spreadsheet that takes 37 questions between 2 people, and they rank a number, basically, to the answer to the question. And ultimately, that generates kind of a graphic, kind of a gap graphic, where there's big distance here and small distance here. And right now, it's just on Excel, works really well, and it's really specific content, not broad-based content, very specific. I don't know if GPT is a good application for that, to just be able to send this to the client and say, okay, you two fill this out, and it will generate all that. I have the questions, I got all the information. Is this something that GPT can help you with?
Potentially. So the actual data itself, is it numerical?
Yeah.
So I will be honest, a system like ours, RAG specifically, is more on the qualitative than quantitative side. They can't necessarily do math or data analysis or heavy comparison between things. So that may not be the best use case overall. And we also don't generate images, so if you do need a graph or something, sticking with Excel or something you're using like ChatGPT Vision, for example, is definitely a really good option for that.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How large is, I guess, the memory size of your RAG model?
Yeah, great question. So through our self-service plans, we do also have an enterprise version. Our largest plan, Premium, you can upload 300 million words across an account, and you can make 100 GPTs, and each GPT is completely individual. So you can make 100 GPTs for 100 separate businesses, no mixing between data, they're each completely siloed, and you can upload up to 20,000 files to each of those GPTs, and a file is a link from a website or a PDF or other type of file.
If you're feeding it PDF, let's say you're feeding a PDF from a book you found, from some of that's copyrighted, you need to be careful about that. Do you have any controls to prevent people from doing that?
It's definitely a tough question. I was asked that question yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially it is on the user itself to determine if the information you're uploading is something you're allowed to upload. Now there's of course differences if you're using it for personal use versus distributing it. So if you want to read our terms and conditions, you can of course. We are more of a data processing system at the end of the day, so it is kind of up to the end user to determine what data they can upload versus can't.
Be careful, you try to get approval.
Exactly, always approve. Yes.
Do you handle automated feeds with larger data sets? And what happens if the data changes frequently? So I'm imagining an insurance carrier who wants to build a thing for their CSMs to do policy building of all of their policyholders.
Yeah, great question. So yes and no. You can certainly create automated flows. So we do have an API, so more on the technical side, we have people that have built applications on top of our RAG API. So everything we've done here is the no-code front-end version, but if you would like to, you can of course build and create an application on top of our system itself, which is pretty cool, right? We're built on top of LLMs, then you can build on top of our actual API. So in that case, it's possible. It kind of depends as to your kind of development capabilities. And And as far as like live API data, that's not necessarily the best use. There does need to be some kind of like unstructured data, like kind of set in the RAG. But we do have features such as auto sync. So if you upload, for example, a website or a YouTube channel, and someone adds a new video, a new page, our GPT will actually sync with that data and bring in the new info and delete the old information.
You have to pre-structure it anyway. Like you mentioned CSVs, but a lot of times chat LLMs have a hard time figuring out the associations between records or summarizing records.
Yeah, so unstructured data is better than structured data. So like a CSV is something you can upload, though it's generally better to upload unstructured as in stuff in PDF, right? Like more of a written out format. It tends to do much better within RAG and LLMs.
So you said earlier that this was more for qualitative. So if you wanted to add, if you had an application where you wanted to add quant to it, so you use your defined data, but then you want to do the quantitative, would that be a use case to add in the the 4O then?
Yeah, so if you wanted to, you could certainly add an additional layer, like using actual ChatGPT at their assistance API. So you have people that will take our system, use the RAG, and also use like OpenAI's API to layer in some additional stuff, whether it's an analysis layer or for something else. That certainly can be done.
So 2 questions. Is there a lower rate for nonprofits every month?
Yes, so nonprofits get 20% off our plans, so yes.
And then, are you able to see what people, so you create your custom ChatGPT and you distribute it to your organization, are you able to see what the most requested information is? Is there like a dashboard that hey, this is what people are asking about?
Yes, so you're right on some new stuff we're working on. So first, you can always see the chat logs. And at the end of the day, the chat logs are actually some of the most important data that you get from deploying GPTs. So in here, now I'm using in-app, but out of app, if I were to deploy this, everyone's conversations would appear here. They do appear as anonymous when it's deployed to the general public. And what you can do, you can of course click through, or you can export these conversations and do analysis. A lot of people just use ChatGPT for that. And we do have some basic analytics out now and some more robust stuff that's actually going to be creating reports based on the conversations that are happening. So we're using generative AI to take in these reports from your chat logs and actually give you stuff. Hey, what's the most missing content from your website? What are people asking about most? These are features you should implement that your GPT says your product does not have. So all of that information is actually the best stuff you can use to then, in turn, drive revenue or save costs for your own business.
Sure, how about on the back, right back there?
Can you link together the agents? So could you create like a RAG that queries more specific set of data and then pass that response to another agent that's tied into the GPT-4?
Yes, so we do have 5 minutes left, just heads up there. So yes, you can technically do that. That's definitely would be utilizing the API, and we have been experimenting with trying to actually make that a no-code availability for people. But currently, yes and no, you would kind of have to build that out yourself. We don't have an offering for that kind of turnkey, but yeah, you could potentially stack chatbots or create an orchestration type of setup.
Yeah, so yeah, I work here at BC for Developers, and I've been building an internal and external chatbot for our company. So I've done tons of research on RAG as a service, essentially, and I want to give y'all props. This is amazing. Excuse me, it's probably the best UI that I've seen. A lot of them have great backend infrastructure, but definitely as a no-code platform, this is really great. I did have a couple questions. Most of them have been answered already, but as far as like when you look at, obviously you have embedded links, citations, and all of that, but when you look at when you have these like people or projects, are you able to query about specific entities that it sees across your source? Is that it? You understand that?
Maybe the step part, say it one more time.
Yeah, sorry. So like when you have, let's say we're a very technical company, we have a ton of GitHub issues. So we want to know, maybe this person's asking a GitHub issue here, then also in our Discord server, we can ingest that content, but they're asking the same questions, or questions over here. Are we able to ask a specific question about a user and it understands that this information is tied to that user? Is it more like a graph related or the structure essentially?
Yeah, so not necessarily. Our system doesn't really label and categorize end users unless they are actually all using and have seats. So if you want to, you could potentially add your entire team into the GPT app, and then you'd be able to identify specific users by obviously their name and account and whatnot. But I believe what you're mentioning is not necessarily possible. I'm maybe not too familiar with that process, but I don't think so.
So as we're finishing up, we pulled up the MIT Orbit system, and we want to pull up the MIT Orbit website. So this is really cool for two reasons. Obviously, we're talking about a chatbot. You see this chatbot here. This is custom GPT. This went in place maybe a year ago-ish, whenever they. Doug Williams, he's the head of AI for the Martin Trust. Phenomenal person. Trained this out of the Martin Trust. They have two major books: Disciplined Entrepreneurship, which is like 24 sort of. It's a framework that's like gamified. A book. It's in its 10th printing. You can probably ask the questions here, and it's going to tell you about the book. Startup Tactics has 15 sort of parts and units, and it's in this system. Why I'm bringing this up, not only is it a great example of the power of custom GPT, working with Doug Williams, because we work with custom GPT and just in this great network, we are now launching MIT's Orbit program for everybody here. We're the first in the outside of pretty much like some small pilots and testing outside of MIT alumnus. There's like 5,000 users in this platform. Over 4,000 are MIT alumnus or current students. They developed these new AIs. Custom GPT is one. They're using another internal AI that you can go through the book and actually build your startup tactics and go through this disciplined entrepreneurship. It's the first time in the Midwest it's been launched, and it's launching here first. So as pay attention to your emails, we're going to send this out, but it was a really big win for us to be able to open this up here in the Midwest. So this is before San Francisco or Austin, right here in Cincinnati. So I'd love to say we have more time, but we have like 1 minute, and I think they're wrapping this up.
Thank you guys so much. You guys can build your own custom GPTs. Please take one of those pieces that we left right there. Take it home. It takes 10-15 minutes. Upload your knowledge base, and then also feel free to link this URL. Eli and I will be downstairs for the next hour or so if you guys just want to have another conversation or have a couple more questions. But thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.